Hey guys, welcome back to the Asking Muso podcast. I'm very excited to have this guest. I know I say that every single week, but I've already launched on a couple of things that the great man next to me does actually have no memory of. So that's how we're going to start things off. But this guest I have this week doesn't actually know half the things I'm going to bring up, which is fantastic. But Oskar, say g'day, mate, and kick us off.
G'day, mate. Good to see you. I'm very excited to be thrown under the bus a bunch of times here.
Fantastic. Well, I think we'll start with, for the original fans of Oskar Campbell, we've got a lot less hair upstairs.
A lot less hair.
This is where I first came into contact with you, was doing your acoustic sets and traveling around and doing things locally on the coast and stuff. So how did sort of music all start for you?
Well, I started playing very young. Like I started performing at a very young age. So my first time I played on stage, I can remember, was at Woodford Folk Festival when I was 9 years old. We had a family friend that had a stage there essentially, and in between they let me kind of jump in and do that. So to be honest, music has been a pretty constant stream through my whole life, and I've always done it, always mainly attachment to the guitar, but just songs and music and being around musicians and doing that stuff forever. So that was kind of a thing. I always learnt songs, learned to sing and stuff, and then as I grew into a teenager, I suppose I started writing songs, which is kind of, I suppose, where I started. I grew up in Sunshine Coast hinterland, so it was a pretty subdued back place that there's not a whole heap going on, but a really kind of beautiful place to be creative as well. So I think when I got to a certain age, I started venturing down the coast a bit more and kind of getting to know the scene a little bit. I played a few shows at Soul Bar, and the long hair days. My first music project was actually a band I played in called Dosed, which was a 3-piece alternative jam rock sort of band. And that was the first time I played at Soul Bar and lots of venues on the coast. And that was kind of my introductory to the Sunshine Coast music scene, I would say.
Yeah, okay, right on. You just said Dosed, and it just reminded me back. I actually have Dosed, I think, on my computer. I literally think I do actually have tracks.
You've got
this is terrible for audio
playlist,
medium,
my least favourite bands.
There we go.
Oh,
yeah.
you do too.
I do. The Head in the Clouds EP. I vividly remember Jam Song. I remember Jam Song.
Yeah, this is me.
Yeah, this is fantastic. No, this is great.
Did you not know this was...
No. Okay. So it's interesting. When I started this and I said there were things you didn't know I was going to say.
Yeah.
There are things I didn't even know I was going to say. So just to speak about when I first moved here in 2019, and I was sort of getting amongst the scene, and I played in a band called the Sundowners.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And
Lockie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And with that group, I sort of built a bit of a scene connection with their greater crew, both musos and not.
Yeah.
And one of the people that I was associated with, he or she was just here's some things that you should just get started on. So it gave me the first single that Dora Jackson released, and gave me all these sorts of things like this, and gave me this.
Okay,
and said, here's one to look up.
There you go.
And I've just had it in my...
Crazy.
I've had it in there ever since.
Have you listened to it or not?
Yeah, absolutely. I know Jam Song vividly. It's one that just pops up regularly.
Oh, damn. Okay, there you go.
So that's crazy town. But I didn't actually know it was you. If you look at the album artwork, none of them look like you. So, but yeah, no, I didn't know. So it was a trio.
Yeah, so I actually played with two people that I've known for pretty much my entire life, which are my older brothers, two of his best mates from school.
Okay.
Who kind of became my best mates at the time. And I was still in high school, I was only 15, but we started just playing together. One of them was a drummer who I lived with, and then another friend of mine who is just a brilliant guitarist, bass player, and just a really cool dude that we just started jamming and writing songs together. And then just kind of started out as any band did, that we just played in the garage, and we just thought it was so sick to play songs and make noise with the drum kit. It was just the most exciting thing.
Okay.
And then we started once we started playing shows at Soul Bar and stuff, it was whoa, this is a real thing. We're a real band.
Yeah.
And then we got some cool gigs and stuff. So yeah, that was my introduction to playing live gigs and the music scene, I suppose.
Yeah, righto. Yeah. So how did you produce that?
We actually recorded it at Tanuki Lounge with Paulie B.
Okay. So it was also early days, but it was your first proper recording experience was proper recording.
Yeah, my first recording I ever did was with Paulie B. He used to have a Tanuki Lounge with his studio in West End in Brisbane. Sorry, Yamanui is a studio on the Sunshine Coast.
Yes, yep.
Where that transfers. So my first recording was at Tanuki Lounge in West End,
right,
which was my first experience recording anything. which was just amazing. It was so cool. And then I recorded this EP with the band in Yamanui. We went there for a few days.
Sure.
It's a really great space.
It's one of those things where it's like I know all about it, but I've actually never set foot in the place.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's very cool.
Yeah.
Very
Okay.
cool. Yeah.
No. Okay. That's interesting. That fills in some gaps. I didn't even know a gap, but that's interesting. So then from there, obviously there was a lot of live stuff, a lot of playing and stuff. Then when did you go out on your own?
So I mean, to be fair, I was always doing my own stuff as well. Like I always played. I started gigging as a musician when I was maybe 12 or 13. I started just booking myself covers gigs, which I had a few original songs that I played, but I just never really had the confidence to do solo stuff. Just some reason, as soon as I had a band, I just felt so much cooler and like it was fun. Whereas
it is actually much cooler.
It is, yeah, it is way cooler. Still not that cool.
But. I was gonna say, someone that plays drums. I was really yanking for that. But thank you for just going with it. I appreciate that.
Drummers are cool as, mate. People love drummers.
You can come back anytime, but we've only just started, so you don't have to say all that yet. You can save it for later on. But I do appreciate.
He paid me to say that.
Yeah, no one's getting paid here.
But yeah, I always wanted to do like acoustic stuff too. Like I was a big like Ed Sheeran like singer songwriter, like writing some pretty shit songs. But like it was still fun at the time, and I loved just playing acoustic guitar. So after that, I started recording. We kind of stopped doing Dose stuff at some point, and then from that point, I started recording my own music, which is where I dug into doing like acoustic singer songwriter stuff. Like there was lots of people around the Sunshine Coast, as you would know, doing that kind of like folk acoustic stuff. So I found myself doing a little bit of that. And then also playing in lots of bands and playing like in reggae bands, playing in like a few rock bands, doing a bit of session stuff. So I kind of wrote some acoustic stuff, and then I kind of liked it for a little bit and kind of played a few shows with the kind of more acoustic scene a little bit. But I felt like I always just felt like a little bit out of place and didn't really like, I liked it, but I didn't really feel like it was my scene. Like I always wanted to write band music and wanted to do stuff that was just a little bit more like natural for me, I think. And like, I don't know, there was just something not that satisfying about just being a solo artist, which led me to starting a band and writing music that is for a band, essentially, you know?
Yeah, okay, sure. So how many iterations of that did it sort of take before you realized that this was like the passion? Or did you always know this was the passion?
I think the passion's kind of been there since I was a little kid in terms of like what I'm trying to do. I think it's the same for a lot of musicians. It's like, it's always the same things. It's just like the more you learn about life, the more you kind of understand why you like certain things more. Like, I mean, I've been into rock bands since I was a little kid. Like my earliest memories were dressing up as Jimi Hendrix and wandering around the house in these like hippie clothes and playing the guitar. But then like from that, I was always I was a massive System of a Down and Red Hot Chili Peppers, and like bands were the thing that really like inspired me. It wasn't really until I was a teenager that I got into like singer-songwriter. Like Ed Sheeran really changed that a lot for me. And he was kind of a big influence for a while, but like I always liked rock bands more, and my parents listened to a lot of bands. Like my mum was a massive ABBA fan, so like a lot of like melody and pop was very big. Yeah, but then also dad was like a big Led Zeppelin fan and kind of like went down the cooler rock bands sort of thing. So that's where it got me into playing a lot of blues guitar and learning that sort of stuff. So I always felt like I didn't really fully justify my passion and the variety and passion for music by just playing a song with acoustic guitar. Like I wanted to make something a little bit more holistic and a little bit more like kind of random, but just it felt more creative to me to be like, I just want to kind of break a few rules and make music that is just whatever I want, really. Like, and you couldn't really do that with an acoustic at that time for me. Yeah,
and also like Ed Sheeran was one of the first to treat it like an instrument, to treat it like a multifaceted instrument,
absolutely,
rather than just a part. And because that was the whole thing, was like, wow, you realize like that Ginger Boy's going to get up there and he's going to play like a stadium with just a guitar.
Yeah,
what else is there?
Yeah.
Then after, like, I never saw him play, but after, people I know have seen them play, it's like, that's it. That's it. Like, but it's something else entirely. So it's interesting that that's just stayed true, and you just like kept pushing that. That was just where you wanted to end up.
Yeah, I think it's always just changing as well. Like I think that. And the more time I spend trying to like work it out, I feel like it just doesn't work. You just kind of do stuff and just be like, this feels good. I'm going to try that for a while.
Yeah, you got to just, you can't edit a blank page, I always say. Like you got to have a go to know, don't like that.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah. And you just have to follow what's exciting, particularly with music. It can get so stale if you're if you're trying to like fit into a box of trying to do something just because you should be doing it. Whereas I think you just have to make music that makes you feel excited and like it's fun. Like that's why you do it, right? Like
Exactly. And also like the season that you're in may mean that some of the things you think are exciting right now, you don't think are exciting later. And that's
100%.
also
Yeah,
fine.
for
That's
sure.
also
Yeah.
super
Yeah.
fine.
100%.
Like obviously Doze, the EP's timeless, but you know.
the classic.
But no, that whole start, that whole like scene thing of not feeling part of that. Where do you sort of iterate from that school of thought to what is lounge now, or what is lounge? Like maybe let's just go that for those who don't know what lounge is. What is lounge?
I think, like, to be fair, the only constant for me has probably been change and things moving a fair bit. And I think that kind of comes with the side that can seem a little bit like I don't commit to ideas for a long amount of time, which I think has sometimes been a bit challenging as well,
Sure.
and a bit of a downfall. But in the same time, I'm kind of grateful for it because it's something with me that I like, just following what's really exciting for me. And I feel like I always stumble across a better iteration of what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So even with lounge, like I started doing lounge and it kind of started in a very different place to what it is now. But really, I think what changed for me was starting to get into production and starting to record stuff, but not just record stuff. Like when I was younger, I had no concept of the difference between producing music and just recording something like or engineering or whatever. Like the idea of just like hooking up, knobs for a drum sound didn't inspire me at all. But then I think the more that I learnt about music and music production and how creative it actually can be and how much you can do with recording and sound and how different it can make a record. You can have the same lyrics, same singer, same song, but the way that you put that forward and the way you dress it up just changes it, and it goes from this characterless beast to like something that's just amazing and really inspiring. So that was what started Lounge, was that I started writing demos, but rather than being like, here's an acoustic guitar and a song I wrote, because I was like, if I sit down with an acoustic guitar and try and come up with some lyrics, it's usually pretty crap. Even these days, I'm like, I just can't do it. It doesn't work. Like some people are just brilliant at sitting there with an acoustic and just writing a beautiful folk song. And it just doesn't really work for me. But as soon as I'm on the computer and I have like some loops there and I have some like a guitar sound that's all like effed up and weird, or it's like just something I'm like, that's odd and inspiring, then I follow that, and then a melody comes, lyrics will come, things, and that's probably been the constant for Lounge the whole time. And Lounge has taken a few detours, like I've kind of experimented with different kinds of things, but that's kind of what it started for, of like unlocking the fact that I'm like, oh wow, I don't need to just make music that is like this. I can somehow tie in all of these other influences. Like I'm also a huge pop fan. Like I love pop music. I grew up listening to all the 2000s bangers of like stuff that you can't make that without going crazy with production. Like
Totally, yeah.
But I never understood how, like that was always just this like crazy beast that I had no idea how they made vocals sound so good, or how they made a track that just carried so much energy and emotion. But I'm like, I don't even know how the hell they're doing that. It just sounds like a guitar, but it's so much better than that.
How do I get in? Like, I don't even know how to even get into that.
Exactly.
Like, how do I even get...
100%.
How did you sort of get in? Like, because obviously there comes a certain amount of gear and knowledge and ideas and not necessarily guidance, but some sort of guideline of at least where to begin, How did that sort of work for you?
Yeah, well, I mean, to be fair, I feel like I'm still learning stuff every day. Like, I feel like I'm still at the beginning of my production journey in some ways, but I think like over the last few years, just the stuff that I have learned has really changed my perspective on music a lot. But I think it's the same with anything. Like, and I'm the kind of person that like the way I learn stuff is a little bit unformatted. Like I kind of just go in and just mess around until I like something. Like
yeah.
And for the better or worse, like some people are really good, I feel like, at deciding what they want to learn and then kind of doing it in a very strategic way that works for them. But like for some reason or not, my brain just doesn't work that way. Like I just want to dig in and play around and find out. So that's kind of the way I've gone with production. Like, and I think like we were talking about before, is something that the technical elements of it is kind of where I'm having to play catch up a little bit now, because I've just gone full creative brain. Like the first Lounge recordings that I produced, like the vocals were all distorted as shit, like accidentally, just because I'm like not checking the levels, because I'm sitting there like, I just want to record this vocal while it's in my brain and I've got the voice tone happening, because in half an hour I'm like, I don't really feel like it. Like
what did I do exactly? That's interesting. That's what you mentioned me off camera before. You were saying like, when I'm in that vibe, I just want to do that, and that's sort of it. It's pretty
100%.
vibes based,
Definitely.
Whereas in this case, that's actually how it was done.
Yeah, for sure.
Did you do I actually just want to know this just because I've wondered this. Did you do everything for the original lounge tunes?
No, so before, like when we started, I did a lot of demos for that stuff. And then
Sure.
the first 4, so we did 4 lounge songs that at the time I was playing with 4 friends from Brisbane that were kind of part of the project. And the initial iteration of lounge was a band. And I had played with a few different people, and I was still trying to work it out and work out what was happening. But I just had friends who were really great musicians that played on all those records. And they also were part of the live show that we did for a while there. And then I recorded with Brock Weston, who's recorded with, he's in the Bugs and the drummer of the Bugs, but he also records bands like Betty Ray's and lots of Bad Neighbours and lots of great like rock bands in Brisbane. And he's just like a great dude for recording rock stuff. He's got a studio down in Brisbane that I'm actually working out of at the moment as well. But that was actually the first thing. So we're recording them as rock songs. And I think like, although he's a fantastic producer and a fantastic engineer, there was this side of it that I'm like, I feel like there's lots of other stuff that I want to be putting in these songs, but I don't really know how to. And trying to communicate that to engineers and producers, I think that's where I also got lost of like, where's this modern pop element of, you know, I could listen to a lot of artists like Dominic Fike or someone like that who's really produced. So like you go and record a rock record, there's a lot of other layers and stuff that kind of need to be there for it to sound like that modern
pop rock scenario.
Yeah. So I think it was honestly just a curiosity of being like, how the F do they do this? Like, I want to know how to do this. I want to know how to make a vocal sound so fucking cool like that. Or
like I've done what I know to be an included element.
Yeah.
But I still feel like we're miles away. How are we miles away?
Yeah. And you're watching all these YouTubes of like how to make a vocal sound like this. And then you're like, bro, I did that. It does not sound like that.
Exactly. What else am I missing? When you've unmuted it, I still feel like there's I'm missing. What am I? Yeah. And that's the thing. It's the first hurdle of all these sorts of new things is I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah.
Which is exciting, but also so frustrating.
It is for sure. And you have like waves, like I'm sure you feel the same as you have waves where you're like working lots of stuff out and it's very exciting. And then you have waves where you're like, this is impossible. I'm never going to know how to do that. Like,
literally.
They're just so good at it. Like, I don't know how to get there.
Yeah, I'm not even like, it's interesting. I remember watching, I got a guy who's done work with me and for me for other bands and for my own stuff.
Yeah.
But is a drummer by trade, but a phenomenal mix engineer, producer for, he can do pretty much anything. He does a bunch of country, pop rock, metal stuff. He's just actually releasing a metal course.
Sick.
Full 7-hour metal course thing that you can buy off him. Spinlight Studio down New South Wales, Reece Sacker. He's an absolute champ.
Okay.
And he has, like, I've watched so many videos and stuff, and he'll be like, you know, this is, you know, where you can take this, you know, kick that's not really giving you the oomph it needs. And I see the processing and stuff. And then he turns all the processing off. And I'm like, man, I'd kill for my final kick drum sound to sound as good as what you've done with processing off. I'm just like, okay, I think I need to reset the parameters of like what's in my scope and how can I sort of iterate on what he's given, which is like, this is how it looks good, this is how you should do it, and then factor in what I'm working with and those sorts of things, and then sort of meet in the middle. But sometimes it can get a bit disheartening because you're like, man, or raw drums, and he's like, oh, I feel physically sick listening to this, and I'm just like, this is awesome. Like, what are you talking about?
This is as good as it gets, man.
This is fantastic. Yeah. Did you just take the latest Justice Street record? And that's been one thing for me. It's been like, crap, I am listening to me and having to try and I'm curious here about you here when it's all you, how to not fill in the gaps on what you wanted your take to be. Rather than what's actually audio in front of you. When it's not you and someone sends you stems, it's like, well, this is what's in front of me.
Yeah.
But how do you go about your own stuff and being like, that's not pitchy, is it? It's like, if you're asking the question, maybe do the take again because it's you and you're like, maybe, did I get that right or not? How do you do it?
Yeah, I think it's like, I don't know. I think I kind of just will do stuff until it like feels right. Like I really do try not to overthink. Although like I am an obsessive overthinker at times, like with recording in general. And the way that I do lounge stuff at the moment is like, I'll write a bunch of songs and then I'll keep going back to them. But I essentially just like do them, let them sit for a while, and then come back, you know, a month or two later and go, what's bothering me? Like if it's bothering me, then I need to do something about it. If it's not, then just leave it. Like, I think I'm trying to leave some of that humanity in stuff as well. Like, I think there is a problem with going through and making everything super perfect and polished, and then it just comes out sounding like dog shit. Like, sometimes you need to leave some of the yucky bits in there with a vocal take or with a, it just needs to have character. I think that's like what I've kind of come to is like, that is the most important thing in a record is like, it just needs to carry an honesty and a character that is really hard to get, I feel like as well. And, there are a lot of artists that like when you get in a room with an artist and they can just sing in a way that you're like, oh, I just believe you. It just sounds great. Like I don't even want to touch it or do anything. Like that's the best thing ever as a producer to work with people like that. But as well, I think there's that kind of psychological component of just getting people in a headspace where they like, you need to feel cool to put a cool vocal down. So rather than trying to worry about like how to sing or how to get it perfect, worry about like how you can make the artist or yourself feel cool about what you're saying. And maybe that's through lyrics, and maybe it's through like your delivery or what you're doing, or maybe the beat behind it's not there, so you don't, and then as soon as the beat's there you're like, oh damn, I feel this now and I want to put something down. And then, but I think that's the main stuff. And then like the rest of it, you know, like I would always melodyne vocals and I'll always make sure everything's in tune and relatively in time. But like other than that, like I don't really understand the obsessive, like if I go to do vocals, I don't even really do vocal days, to be honest. I just kind of like record stuff until I like it half the time.
Check. Yep. Yeah, we're doing it now.
Whereas some people want to do like a whole day and just sing it till it's pitch perfect, which obviously that works great for some singers, but like for me, I'm like, it just doesn't, I'll just think about it too much and I'll ruin it. I ruin my own creativity with that. So it's more about like, how can I just get in the vibe? And then if I'm not in the vibe, I'm getting better as I get a little bit older, just to be like, it's cool, man. Just walk away. Just leave it. Like that song is not having it today. Maybe next month you'll come back and be like, oh, cool, I can solve that now. Like
for sure.
And then eventually get to the point that you're like, okay, this is good enough to get mixed and move on. Like, but yeah, still lots of learning, you know, still trying to work it out and getting better at that process every time. But like I used to try and record and like it gets so stuck on the first, trying to get the first guitar bit right. And then I'm like, I just ruined it. Just got in my own way and totally ruined the recording. Totally. Like, and you listen to, you know, my favorite records or the records that are dominating in the world, and they're never like perfect. There's always bits that aren't, but they're just great and they just carry so much emotion that they're undeniably exciting. Like,
or they do something that that if you looked at, like, you know, for instance, the one I've been playing in my head over and over has been Coincidence by Sabrina Carpenter, because I am putting together with the Justice Trio an acoustic version of a song.
Oh, sick.
And as part of that, I wanted a nice reference, and I looked at the body of the guitar that's in front of me, and the performance is so good and so dynamic with what John's playing. Yeah. It's far too technical to put doubles to and stuff, because it would just be mess, because the nuance of how he's played it, you couldn't double that. Yeah. So therefore, I'm like, for the amount of just chords bits just to do a double for the sake of it, I don't think that's there. I've widened it a bit, and I'm looking at the spectrum, and I'm like, well, I know that she's got a lot more mids, a lot more stuff in there, but I like the fact that the guitar in that song is thin as biscuits. It's just mids and above, and that's clearly stylistic. But I'm like, that sticks out to me, something that I'm like, you know, I have a guitar that's pretty much mids and above. Yeah. I know our processing is very different, but it's a nice likeness for me to be like, yeah, this is a song that's MIDI. That's not, you know, you hear some things like when they did the Eagles did a big live album, and it's all, you know, and they strum into Hotel California on the 12 string, and it feels from 50 hertz to 20,000 hertz just from that one strum. It is the full spectrum. It's beautiful for the ears. Yeah. And I was like, well, that's not what my guitar sounds like, but that's fine. Yeah. That's not what her guitar sounded like, but that's fine. Yeah, for sure. And like, that's definitely a trap for young players, and a trap for those in the perfectionist world, or just that are just new to it, is they mix with their eyes. Yeah. And that's a big thing. And that's probably one of the biggest things I've had to get over, is mix with my eyes. Yeah. Because, you know, I'll look, like, for instance, I got a drum fill in a song that I've been working on, and it's perfect. And I say that because of the next part, but my drum fill is perfect to the grid. The supporting instruments are not. So therefore I'm out of time, because it sounds like I'm out of time, because no one listens to the record and goes, gee, you can tell the drums are on the click there. Yeah. They just know that out of the 10 instruments playing, one of them's drums, which is out of time, and 9 of the other ones are correct. So I'm out. So I'm like, I actually have to sort of move myself to be out of the grid. Yeah, what's
technically out to work,
because I'm not going to shift all these guitars and finicky bits and vocals. I just
to make it
move a couple of drum hits, you know. And that's so unorthodox, and I wouldn't have done that however many months ago, I would have said we're not moving it until you catch up with me.
Yeah.
Whereas in realism, the vibe of the song, it speeds up there because we get excited when we play it live.
Yeah, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like,
Exactly.
It might be, but it
and
might
I
not
didn't
be.
map it that way.
Yeah.
And then on the next, measure, we come in to the click again. So I
Yeah.
can't really map it.
Yeah.
It's not enough out of time that it's a beat above or anything like that.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah.
like, well, I just have to make some changes now.
Yeah.
And that mixing with the eyes, that just cancels out that ability to be able to see that.
To be flexible with it.
Totally,
Yeah,
totally.
for sure. Yeah, I think that's definitely a big part of it, hey. And I think that you, like in music in general, I feel like you kind of have to learn lots of rules and then you have to get good at breaking them and knowing when to break them. And that's kind of, like, I feel like the basics of music and writing songs and like even producing to a certain degree, like you kind of learn all the basic shit pretty quick. It's all the other stuff that's fucking hard. Like you spend years of like, and that's the stuff we're talking about of like, you learn all these little basic things to begin with of like how to plug something in, how to record it, like what an EQ is, what a compressor's doing, like what a reverb is. And you kind of learn all the things and then you go, everyone that's making these crazy records, they just have the same things. They're just really, really good at using them. And they understand the nuance and they understand they've had so much experience to know when to do that or when the drums should actually be out of time or when they should be like, and I feel like that's the stuff that you just can't shortcut it. You just got to be doing it for years and years and years. So it's exciting to like continue to do that because you feel like you just like will continue to learn stuff and then in a long amount of time you'll be able to like just, it's like a superpower being able to whip up some like crazy beats. But
yeah, and I think I love your process because you come with you come to the party on your own idea with something that's listenable.
Yeah.
Some people, it's just the voice memo with a cough and the car driving past halfway through and the timing's woeful and the parts are wrong. And whereas in this case, you're putting together something that already is tangible and exists.
Yeah.
So then you're iterating on something that's tangible and exists. Even if, it's demo vocals and the drums are rubbish and all this stuff, you've got all the parts. And I think that's a part of songwriting that I have tried to develop when I've been working with other people is how about we don't talk about it and we just get it down and if it's naff, it's naff.
Yeah.
We put one mic in the room, we all play and we see what happens.
Yeah.
And it's just like now we have parts rather than just I've done this little thing on the guitar and perhaps the parts that are there, they don't really allow for a bass bit or they don't really allow for that drum bit because there's no space built in because you've
for sure,
whether you've meant to or not subconsciously you've played an acoustic guitar part and that needed to cover all the parts in the song because that's all you've got up here.
Yeah,
whereas I like that your process is very much I need to layer some things to get the creative juices flowing.
Yeah, I think it's good and it's bad, hey, because I have respect for people a lot that can just sit down an acoustic and write that way or like because it's I think you allow for different songs to come out, but like I think once you just start writing too, because I always will write to a computer essentially, like whether if I do a writing session with other people or I do it with myself, it's like I'm always writing on the computer. I might come up with some lyrics randomly out of the shops, but usually I'm at the computer trying to workshop stuff. So in some ways it's good, but then it's also like if I sit down just with an acoustic guitar, I'm like suddenly like I don't know how to write songs.
I'm like okay. What do I do now?
Yeah, how do I do this without like a beat behind it? So it's good and it's bad. I think that, but that's another thing about like writing and creativity in general is like they're all wrong ways and they're all right. It's like you just got to find what works for you and then get better at it. And I think it might take time to get to the it's a continuation of trying to get to the level you want to be at. You never really get there anyways, but I think it's like just doing stuff in your own way. I think I used to think a lot more about like how's this person doing it or how's that, and it's good to get influence from people, but at the end of the day you've got to be like, this is what works for me. It could be something weird as heck, but like if it works for you then it works, and don't deny it. Like just roll with it and see what you can make out of it. I reckon.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's key, and it's definitely a balance of what is like what fits the formulas and the foundations of what is and isn't.
Yeah.
But like it's interesting, like when you were talking about things that are that are the things you learn to start with, how to plug in, how to do this, how to call a cable and stuff like that. I was going to jump in and be like, red's bad if you're recording at that level, and then I'm like, oh gee, there's a lot of people that I know like to record at clip central.
Yeah, if you got a Neve desk then it's good, but
yeah, exactly. And so it's like even that is a rule, but it's not actually a rule. That's a rule that gets broken all the time. So it's like all these things, it's just nuance. It's just absolutely nuance.
Yeah. and it's fun to play within that. But I think, yeah, it's good to understand basics of things. And I think that
Yeah.
I've definitely tried to like fast track a lot of basic stuff that now I'm like, okay, I can understand why I'm not meant to do that now.
Yeah. What about collaboration for you? Now, this is something that I like to always talk about because it's a big fan of it. That's why I do this. But yeah, what's your relationship with that? And both you talk about songwriting sessions with other people and stuff. What's collaboration like for you?
You know, I think it's something that if I could give any advice to my younger self a few years ago, I'd say do a heckload more of it and don't shy away from it. I think naturally I'm a little bit of a reserved and a bit of a shy person. So like doing a lot of that, it can be quite confronting. It can be a lot, like to even write songs with people and stuff. Naturally, it's like kind of, it's a bit confronting because also writing songs with people, you're kind of like putting your heart out there and you're saying, I like this. And if you don't like it, it's kind of like, oh, that hurts. But I think
that's actually so true. And that's something people don't think about. It's just like, we come up with this idea I wanted to bounce through. And it's like, well, we've sort of acknowledged that I think this is worth bringing to you.
Yeah.
It's
so I think initially, like I didn't do much of it. And to be honest, I spent a good part of my early 20s just doing, like, I'm not like an old man, I'm only 24, but my early 20s, back in the early 20s.
Yeah,
but
years ago.
I spent years ago, back in those days. But I just spent so much time in my bedroom making songs by myself and wrote so many songs and did so much stuff like that and was just like, oh, I'm just going to get better at this, going to get better. Now, like, fortunately, I've just spent a bit of time overseas that I was doing a lot more collaborating. And I think since that, like coming back to Australia, I'm like, oh man, I got to do so much more of this. Like it's such a rewarding process. It's for one, I think it's just great to be around other people doing creative stuff because it's very easy to get in this like mindset that you have unique struggles with making music and creativity. But the truth is that, I mean, you're probably not. They're probably the same struggles as everyone else.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you go in just doing this, you can kind of bounce off people and be like, oh yeah, cool. It's actually okay for me to find this kind of hard because everyone does. It's like, it's just part of being a human doing that. So I think that there's that level, which is really good, and being around people and bouncing off their energy too. Like, you know, if you write a song with someone and they just do something, you're like, oh, that's so sick. Like, I want to be able to do that. Like,
I never thought of that.
It's really cool. Like, there's lots of stuff you pick up from people, and I think everyone, you know, all the people I've worked with, like a lot of people that are just, so, I mean, everyone I've worked with has been really great at least a few things. You know, they're either fantastic at coming up with lyrics, or they're bringing just such a great energy to a room that is like undeniably important, or they're coming up with really cool guitar parts, or they just have great production ideas, or whatever it is. But like everyone has different things. And if you go into a room with people, it's like, if you can kind of just drop the side of like that you need to provide everything and just be like, look, I can just be the person that's, sometimes it's just like asking the right questions and not even contributing to the session, but just getting other people in the headspace that, or like making them feel confident about what they're doing, or, you know, something like that. Cause it's same thing as someone comes in a room and if they feel a bit insecure, no one writes a good song when you're feeling insecure, unless your song's about being insecure. But it's like, usually you won't feel yourself until someone's kind of gives you the right affirmation or kind of helps you steer into a direction that you feel really good about what you're doing, and then suddenly you're spitting like bars that are great and everyone loves it. But that stuff's there, like, so it's something that I've been like, whoa, I've got a lot of work to do in terms of getting better at that skill, but I really would like to develop that in the time coming, and you just come out with some cool songs as well, and you feel more connected to the musicians around and everyone and that whole process. But I think that being that skill of being able to like bounce off people and then also get other people to bounce off each other and inspire people to come up with ideas. It's like, also when I've been in rooms that with other people that are good at that, like the best producers, I feel like are the ones that are able to bring that out of the artist, rather than being like, I got this sick ass beat, or I've got this like really cool recording technique. It's like the artist doesn't give a shit. They just want to be like, this is a cool idea, let's work. If you can make them feel good about their stuff and get on their level, you just come out with a better song all the time. Like,
absolutely, because if there's any reservations or any parts that they are married to, you can potentially even get to a point where that's a bit of a malleable idea, and perhaps we aren't doing it quite as you thought. And I actually had that experience recording just recently. Dan and Brizzy, I was at the whim of a producer wearing an engineer hat rather than what I'm used to, which is me pressing the buttons. Or, you know, a derivative of that, or just someone who's just happy to just press the buttons. And that is fine. And there's no disrespect to someone who wears the engineer hat and that's the only hat they wear. That's absolutely fine. But in this case, I was pushed and we went over some syncopation things. We went over some parts. Like, this is not my song, mind you.
Yeah.
It's a session gig, but I played for I think it's under 3 minute song.
Yeah.
I played a lot of takes, and I played for hours.
Yeah.
Because there were just, once you get over the grumble of not actually, being in the zone yet, where your first couple, whatever.
Yeah, sure.
I was like, just trying different things that weren't even on my radar. That's been such a unique experience. I can't say I've ever actually had that in a studio experience before, where someone has been like, this part now, and he actually said to me, he's like, Bailey, you're welcome back here anytime. Your playing's exceptional, but this is just an idea, and that sort of started a lot of sentences. Hang on, this is just an idea. And we ran them, and I know that obviously only like two of them are going to get used because the song's only 3 minutes. But I felt like G'd up because he felt like, oh, this guy is, and I mean this with respect to myself, this guy's a tool that I can absolutely utilize.
Yeah,
because I don't have to be like, oh, he's not even on the part that he was meant to have written. It's like, well, you've played that one, tick.
Yeah.
How about a part you didn't write? That I think might sound good in this song. And none of us were married to any of the parts, and we just did what was best. And some of them I pushed back on just because, like we were talking about off air before, some of the parts where the MIDI parts are 3-handed drum parts. And I'm like, Oscar, mate, there's only so much I can do, man. But like, some of them were a little bit like, I think we're overcomplicating something that should be very simple. No, fair enough. I'll cop that one. But then here's iteration on that idea. And I just felt G'd up because I just got to do what I was paid to do, done, tick, but then, and plus. And I just was able to be my best self on things because someone got the best out of me. And I think you're right, though. It's absolutely that. Like, I haven't had a lot of experience with someone doing that for me. So
that's great.
It was fantastic to actually have that. I've had feedback before, like, that's not quite exactly what I had in mind, and that's fine. But yeah, this was different. And I think that's such a important experience.
It's like feedback where you feel like kind of supported and validated, and then you get it's like constructive feedback, but they're like, I'm on your team here, we're trying to do this. Whereas if someone, you feel like they're kind of just criticizing whatever you're doing, like as an artist or a performer, that's the worst thing ever. You're like, then you just think about it, you're like, oh, am I doing this wrong? Or you get really insecure. Whereas if it's like, we're on the same team, this is really cool, let's try this, you're like, oh yeah, fuck yeah, I'll do that, like that sounds fun. Like,
exactly.
Now it's creative, it's not like, it's not just criticizing. And
especially in our digital world, yes, and there's really no excuse for that because we're not running out of tape.
Exactly.
We're not running out of these things where it's to the point where it's like, you did do 2. I can't actually really fit any more than 2 drum tracks on, so hopefully one of those is fine. It's not like that anymore. So to be like, well, that one was a doozy. Yes, definitely play the full arrangement. Let's go again. It doesn't have to be, you did it wrong, we're replacing that, and I just think that language, I think people don't understand that a lot of this business, especially the offstage business, is relationships. And
for sure,
and
people
obviously you have a vibe and a chemistry on stage, which is a form of a relationship, but for that 45 minutes, nothing's too terrible that it's going to really come to blows, and there's no conversation really happening on stage and stuff. But to get in a room, okay, we can touch on that.
That's next episode.
But in another world that is the studio or songwriting or just not stage world, it's very much a relationship. If they don't feel comfortable or you don't feel comfortable, then we're not even going to get the best product, regardless of criticism and thoughts and feelings. If you just don't feel comfortable, it will suck.
For sure.
So
I
appreciate that's something that you're looking to get even better at because it's so important.
Well, I think it's I didn't think I realized that would be a part of it as much until I started doing lots of writing, and then feeling like sometimes I just go home and be like, you just made that so much more like stressful for everyone than it needed to be. And there could have been ways of just being like, oh, I probably could have like done this instead, and then they would have felt way better, and then we would have come out with a better song. And or sometimes I had a day where I felt like I did it better, and then but I think more landing on the fact that like at the starting to go in that as a producer, I'm like, oh, I need to like flex my skills on like guitar parts or this or that or adding all these things. But it's like I sort of came to the conclusion, and coming to the conclusion, I still mess this up all the time, but like the conclusion that it's way better to focus on like not what am I going to add to this, but just what can I do for them. And then when they get excited and they love what they're doing, I'm like, oh, now I'm excited, and I come up with the guitar part, and then they're like, fuck, that's cool, and then you're like, oh, sick. It's like it's a cycle. But I think that someone needs to kind of start that. And some people just have a magnificent ability to walk in a room and do that. And like, I will love those people and cherish them and want them in a studio whenever I can get them there. But like, I think it's a good thing, particularly as a producer, to try and learn how you can do that too. Because I've also been in rooms with, like, as a few times I've been in rooms with producers that have just been dominating and horrible and like not very nice to work with, and everyone just comes out feeling bad about themselves, and usually the song suffers and no one really gets what they want, and the producer doesn't even. It's like, it's an insecurity thing or a fear thing that makes them go into and act that way. It's like the best result is everyone wants to get a good song out of it, you know? So sometimes there's more receptive ways you can do that rather than just like going in and blabbering and trying to get, you know, good ideas out.
Yeah, and also everything's different. Every time is not the same as the last time. Every person's different. Those sorts of things. And I think something I want to put in your camp that I think is a bit of a term to look at it, which is pretty much summing up what you're saying, is the notion of shifting your paradigm of thought from something that is what do I need to do, what do I have to add, and almost that chore-based language into thinking win-win. It's like, okay, what can I achieve by helping them achieve what they want to achieve?
Yeah,
you know, like,
yeah.
And so rather than thinking of it, because I think a part of the dynamic, if you get a producer or someone that comes in with a bit of fuck you energy or whatever, you can instantly go into lose-win, and you can be like, as long as it doesn't cause a fuss, I'll do whatever's required.
Yeah, sure.
And that is not a dynamic that works. Like, obviously there are some people that are going to come in with that win-lose mentality of like, we're doing it my way, baby, and you're going to get a song regardless. Yeah. And obviously that, I know that we're not in that capacity. I know I felt the former. I felt that, don't want to upset the apple cart.
Yeah,
you know, I'm already, even just live, the volume side of things. Sometimes I come in and I can just see that everyone's like, drums. And I'm like, I haven't even done anything. Like, I often have been told that I can hit through a little bit more and I don't have to play so soft. Yeah. But you don't know that because you went at those gigs. So now I'm coming in and you're like, just another one off the list. It's going to play too loud. He's going to be obnoxious. Oh, you run ears. Oh, fucking cool.
Fantastic.
You know, and those sorts of things. But coming into something with a win-win mentality, especially when it's a relationship thing like this, where it's like, we're going to sit in a room together. There's no other things. There's no one else going to come in. This is just us. Yeah. And you come into it thinking win-win and being like, what does success look like for you? Take away all money and remuneration, all that side. What does success look like for you? Yeah. And then if your only goal is to help them get to success, because that fulfills the whole reason we're sitting together, well, then you're winning as well. And you come in with that mentality. And I just think that's what it's all. That's really what it's all about. Is coming in win-win. For sure.
I think the only thing I'd add is maybe that I think finding ways that you can do that in a more subconscious way, because I think that it's interesting and that's kind of why people are there. But I think that a lot of people are very almost uncomfortable if you're that forward about that conversation too. Sure. So I think that, and because that's kind of I think my energy can be a little bit intense sometimes as well, in the way that I'm usually like, we'll just want to ask people straight away how they feel about certain things and like work out what they want to do with this and that. And I've also had experience because like for me, I'm like, oh, that's perfect. Like that's what I'd want someone to do to me. Like just come in, ask me the questions, do the hard work. And then after we can know stuff. But like, I think doing that to other people and then being like, people don't like that. It's too intense. Some people love it.
That's
Some
very
people,
true. That is.
But I'm like, if you want to be a universally like good person to work with, you need to learn how to be like, read people's energy and be like, you know, this person today, they're not really feeling the big questions. So let's just start with doing something fun and easy. And then at some point, maybe we can start to unfold that stuff. But it's another one of those skills of like, that is the ultimate thing. It's like, if you know how you can help them, you can do it. But a lot of people aren't ready to communicate that, or they're not in the headspace for it, we just have different ways of communicating too. If you're like quite an open and big personality, then you might throw that at people a lot. And then some people are a lot more passive and they don't really like being interrogated in that way. So
and like it's like, 'cause it's interesting. I was recording demo drums for someone the other day, and initially I was just doing what I was prescribed to do, which was just wear the engineer hat. Yeah, I had the room set up, everything was sorted. Just came in, sat down, played rock and roll. Yeah, and then we did a couple of takes, whatever, and I was like, I think now our relationship, bit of back and forth. We were doing maybe 25 minutes in. I'm going to say, I reckon that would sound better halftime. Yeah. Not coming in guns blazing. Well, fuck that take. That was shit. You know, it's like, I reckon that one's halftime now. And then I was like, okay, have a go of it. And then, you know, a couple of goes back and I was like, hang on, is it all right if I just jump on the kit for just 2 seconds? Yeah, sure. Yeah. Played at halftime. We're like, I am seeing what you're saying. That is much better. You're right. And those sorts of things, it's just a relationship thing, you know,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
that
yeah.
conversation goes south and my phone number gets blocked the moment I
Yeah,
come
for
in
sure.
after the 5-minute mark. First take. Well,
Yeah.
that was
Remember that guy that came in and wanted to fuck with this the first take?
exactly. It's like I
Yeah,
literally was here to do something and he just told me how to do it. It's like, it's my band, man. Like, I know how to do it, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's
for
one of those
sure.
things. It's about reading the room, about reading the people, and
Yeah,
that's the thing that, as you say, some people don't have it, which is fine. But
Well, I
like,
think the uncomfortable part of it as well is like it's once again it's a skill. It's something that you
Yep.
can't just be good or bad at. Like I feel like I have some ideas about it that I try and implement all the time, but I also have so many situations where I've probably effed it up and probably, ruined relationships. So you don't have to do much to kind of sabotage a music relationship in some ways. It's like you can do one session and people, it's not that they am like, oh, I don't want to do anything with that guy. But they might just be like, well, I'm just going to go here instead of there because I really like this person's vibe and I don't like this as much, So
Sure.
it's like, it's very like subtle, that sort of stuff. But I think you kind of learn that through doing it as well and going like, sometimes you leave a room and be like, I probably didn't need to say that. Or sometimes you go, I should have spoken up about this because that would have actually been so much better and I could have added something there. Like,
Yep.
I think that it's, as you said, it's all relationship stuff, but relationship stuff is also a skill. It's
Totally.
something that you develop over time and you can get better at if you want to, I think. But yeah, it's so much of music, I feel like, is part of that. And also just your life. Like, it's so much more enjoyable to do music and like life stuff if you feel like you're connecting with people and you can, if you're doing more sessions that you come out being like, wow, that was fun. I really liked that person and we got along well. That's a hell of a lot better than going home being like, oh, that was a bit weird or awkward, or I said
Yeah.
something weird or they said something weird, or you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah. And also it's like, songwriting or mixing or recording demos, whatever. That's what they pay for. But
Yeah.
the value and the memories of, oh my God, we would just like lighten in a bottle, just one thing after the other.
Yeah.
That's what they get.
that's what they remember as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Absolutely. The value in those sorts of things, that's what they remember and that's what they actually receive.
Of course.
The actual task is what's on the invoice, but that's not the memorable bit. And regardless of how much you want to do it one way or the other, that's not the bit they remember, whether it's
Yeah.
awesome or not so awesome.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to pivot slightly
Yeah.
to TikTok. Now, chatting with Dicko about you and about social media and something that we, the two of us, and you and I have a lot to talk about on that front. Like,
Yeah.
what has that been like for you trying to make Lounge something that is a content piece that you can use to level up your music? Because I know some people are like, put out music, you listen to it, good. If you don't, whatever. How's that journey been for you to be like, you know what, I'm gonna have a go and I'm gonna have a bat and do daily, or I'm gonna push. What's that been like?
Yeah, I think, look, same thing instinctively, like as a person, I think that I'm like the kind of person that just wants to make music in the room and just everyone leave me alone, and then
Yep.
people listen to it and everything goes well. But I think through swallowing some hard pills and kind of swallowing my pride a little bit over the last few years, I realized that that's not how this industry works.
Sure, yeah.
And like, no one listens to my music and there's some pretty good reasons why. Like, I think so. Now I've also think a lot of it's just shyness and like self-consciousness. Like, I've always had a hard time being a figure with music. Like, even though I've performed for a long time for my childhood, I always would play in front of people. I played very young and I'd always sing and play in front of people, but I was never super comfortable. I was always quite an anxious performer. I'd get a lot of stage fright. I'd always feel quite nervous and whatnot before performing. So, and that the other side comes with it is TikTok of like, what do I want Lounge to look like? How do I want to talk about this project?
Totally.
How do I, all of those parts that are really important for being an artist, I kind of rejected for a long time because they were super uncomfortable and they kind of prodded at my insecurities. But at the moment, I think it's kind of something that I'm feeling a lot more excited to. I also stopped doing Lounge stuff for like a year. So
Yeah.
I didn't do it. Like the end of last year, I got to a position where I was like kind of so over it and so not liking what I was doing that I just went, fuck this, I'm done. I don't want to do that. I just want to produce and write for people. And I kind of just dropped everything and decided that I didn't want to do performing anymore. I didn't want to do socials. I didn't want to do anything that was like connecting me to the world. I just wanted to make music and do it that way.
Yep.
And then for a lot of time off, I think just kind of unsolving lots of like like bad mental patterns and things, I thought about that, I came to the conclusion that I'm like, well, I want to do this stuff, and I actually can look at this from a fresh light, which includes socials and how I do that stuff of like, I think now I'm seeing it more of like, it's a great opportunity for social media for what it is. Like, it's a skill that is creative and you can get better at it, and what it can provide for artists and anyone these days is pretty remarkable, and the things people do through it, and that direct conversation with an audience. So I think getting to that point of, for one, realizing that it's absolutely essential, and I do put a lot of time into writing music, creating music, and it's a big part of what I spend my life doing. So I'm totally failing myself if I'm not going to like get off my ass and do the other stuff. And also, like, as you said, I think I'm like, it's more just about like giving it a crack. Just like, why not? May as well try and work this thing out. It would be cool if I could work out how to, run socials and actually build an audience to then be able to play live to them and do shows. It doesn't have to be like all I do with my life, but it can be on one thing that could be really exciting and fun. Like, and I still love producing and writing with people, but I think social media is just now something that I'm like feeling open to the challenge of trying to work out how it works. And making better quality content and all that sort of stuff. And also, I think to be able to provide for other people and work with other artists and stuff as well. Like, I'm kind of like, I think the more knowledge in this industry you have gives you more power to be like, oh, cool, I can share that with my friends now. I can teach that to people. I can, if I'm producing a client, I can also be like, hey, maybe we should strategize this release plan a little bit more than just like, yeah, cool, give me your money, I'll record your song for you.
And then, like then you duck off, and then we never,
It's just not for me. I'm like, I'd rather, if I want to write some songs with people, I want them to be involved for a while. I don't want to commit to something and be like, what are we doing for 6 months? Like, how are we going to support this with socials? And if they're keen to do the work, then I love to, work with them and create art with them, because it's
totally,
that's what art is. And the best art in the world is spread everywhere, and it's amazing. And that's, if it's just you making stuff and keeping it in your room, it's a bit of a selfish thing to do, I think, like you should be out there showing people what you're trying to do and sharing with people and allowing them to, vibe with it and maybe be inspired by it if, in the best case. But
yeah, exactly. And also like, it's one of those things that like, if you've got a computer in your pocket and you've got all this time, effort and money that you're putting into your creative art, why wouldn't you have a go?
Yeah, absolutely, right. Yeah.
Why wouldn't you want to give it its best shot,
Yeah.
And obviously everyone has their own parameters and stuff, and that's totally fair enough. And understanding those is definitely important. But why wouldn't you have a go?
Just try. Yeah,
exactly.
Because you're quite active on socials and stuff as well, right?
Well, yeah, and also it's something that I have to do. Like I've had this absolute whirlwind back forth, and I don't even know if I'm in the back or the forth at the moment. Just about baileydrummer, and it's like, do I want to get my subscribers to 50,000 and showcase what I know how to do behind the kit?
Sure.
Or do I want to make the other socials work? Do I want to see a couple of, something with a K on it in the views on TikToks? Maybe is that what I want to see? And then I'm like, yeah, but also I do this for a living. Like I market bands, I do marketing consultation for the entertainment industry for a living. Do I need to have my own side of things? But it's one of those things, but it's one of those things I'm just not sure about, and leveraging the business in a way, like my business in a way that can, showcase enough that it's not like I'm spending all this time that I don't really have on my own stuff. But also being like, when someone who doesn't really know me that well sees me, they want to see that I actually have some idea what I'm doing, that I'm on it.
Yeah,
it's oh, you're not even on social media, but you're gonna take your money.
Trust me, I know how to do it.
Yeah, I'm mate.
Super reliable.
Mate, I know how to do it, mate. Those sorts of things. That's I got to meet at that, but I'm still not sure where I am back and forth, where I'm at, and it's one of those tricky things that I'm trying to get, because I want to give my best to those that want to level themselves up, and that are obviously paying me to do so. But I also want to be like, I got my own bands and stuff that I really want to give a
push
shot
as
to.
well.
And
yeah,
exactly.
For sure.
And that's definitely part of it. Like Delacoma and the Justice Tree this year is a big year for us. We're going back to the US again, and that comes with it some more admin-y, Bailey puts his marketing hat on stuff.
Yeah.
But also I want to be creative with the trio, and I want to have some fun. I'm putting together our music. I can't be doing that like a Robotronic. I got to be doing that like creative. And, that's definitely something that I'm trying to figure out. I'm like, I think if I can consistently do something and showcase what I have to offer, then I think that's good as a foundation. And then I think it's about building up that. I did November last year, 30 reels in 30 days. I wasn't playing on TikTok at that point, but I did 30 reels in 30 days, and I saw, I think, 25% more growth than just posting irregularly every few days on Instagram.
Okay, yeah.
And I was like, wow.
Yeah,
okay,
that's pretty cool.
Interesting. Was that a valuable offset of time compared to how much I did?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe not, but at the same time I was like, okay, that's interesting as to if I just basically turn the tap on, this is what could happen. So I was like, okay, I think if I can keep consistent and make sure that myself sits and I do the podcast because I enjoy it and I chat with people like you that I want to get to know better and things like that, then I think I can push things forward at the same sort of rate as everything else, even if it's not. You know, I'm not really doing songwriting. I'm not really putting out my music anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with that. But it's like, I think I'm going to keep things moving and have a tool to sandbox, really.
Yeah.
Be like, let's try doing those reels. Oh, it doesn't work on mine. I'm certainly not going to suggest that blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, it's just,
You know, have a bit of a chance to sandbox it and just see what happens. You know?
Yeah. I think it's always a good thing. Well, I feel like life's long as well, right? Like you can always do these things for, you know, a few years you might be really focused on that, and then another time you might be doing something else and not so much of it as well. It's like they're all kind of combined efforts to the same thing as well. And I think like that's becoming more, I think like with creative stuff in general, I used to find, and probably what made me like have a lot of trouble with overthinking stuff a lot is just trying to like work out how everything fits together and where I should be spending time. Like, because I would be like, oh, why am I doing this if it's not directly helping this or that and that? But by the end of it, it's like, you just make it not fun as well. It's worth just being like, well, right now I'm doing this. Maybe in 2 months' time, this will be a better option. But I think it's better to just kind of like keep the flow going with that and realize that they all actually join together, whether it's working on your writing or it's, you know, doing your brand marketing stuff or touring or whatever it is. It's like you're learning about the music business. You're learning how, you know, those people relationships we're saying. It's like you're developing all this stuff. And I think just having some like faith in the process that like doing that will take you somewhere, and God knows where, but
exactly. But like learning about things, like it's interesting. I still get comments from people. I pretty much went dark outside of a couple of stories when we went to the US in 2023.
Right.
Because there was a lot on, you know, and I'm making tour vlogs and we're doing random hours and driving tour buses across America and all this stuff. And there's a lot on.
Yeah.
But I still get comments from people saying, oh, you put together the tour vlogs for the Delacoma tour. Yeah, that was me. They're really good.
Yeah,
and I'm just like,
awesome.
So it wasn't a wasted effort because baileydrummer got neglected, the Justice Tree didn't exist yet. You know, none of that stuff got negatively affected. I just did something else.
Yeah.
And I think,
which I'm sure you learned some things there that could be used elsewhere. Or, you know,
absolutely. Whatever. And that's how I've developed things that I've done in the future. And like, it's a pretty outward expression of us, you know, because it was the first time the audience had ever really seen us, not just people on stage. And those sorts of things. So it was like, okay, well, that was an experiment, and I got an idea of what everyone was happy with and comfortable with, and those sorts of things. I learned so much. So absolute success.
For sure,
you know?
For sure.
And it's just about doing that, just about finding what is a success and like learning. If you're learning, everything is a success.
Absolutely, yeah. And some things feel like your perceived idea of what's successful and what was a good thing and what isn't is usually quite different to the reality as well. Or you don't really know. Like, if
it changes.
Something might seem not successful, and then 2 years later you're like, oh, actually that was really probably one of the best things I've done. So
totally, literally though. Absolutely. It's so true. One thing I did want to ask is Lounge, the future. What's happening? Finish us off with what is happening for Lounge for the next little while.
Well, as like in line with everything we've just said, we're just kind of winging it and working it out as we go a little bit. But we've also got like, there's a lot of music coming. Like I wrote a lot of stuff when I was overseas, and I produced a lot of stuff that is definitely going to come out this year. I think rekindling the live show, which you will be a part of as of recently.
Fantastic.
And then, so playing some live shows again would be really cool. I think just trying to like figure out social stuff, but also just lots of music to come. So like on the outside, it's going to be mainly some live shows and music coming out, which is pretty exciting stuff. Because I didn't release much stuff last year, so that's kind of the main thing. Like we've got this EP coming out in April, and then from there there's be a few more singles this year, and they're kind of a pretty different. There's a bit of like disperging from where we're at and changing sound a little bit, and probably hopefully do some more collaborations this year and just kind of like expand on the sound of lounge, like because it's kind of gone from a band to like a bit of a solo. There was like a little weird, awkward pop phase in the middle there that I don't know what happened. And then
just like all the iterations, like a multiverse. Like, oh, so we've got solo Oskar. Don't talk to him, man. Yeah, you don't want to talk to him, man. There's not much going on upstairs, man. You don't want to talk to him. And then there's the band guy. He's great.
Bit of a dick. But
He's
and
fine.
then pop guy, not sure what he was doing.
Yeah, don't worry about him.
And then, but yeah, now I just feel like I've always been a little bit ambitious about the fact as well that I want to be in a project that's like kind of inclusive of more stuff, and I'd love lounge to be able to kind of be like, oh, we're doing this now. Like I've always admired projects like the Gorillaz or something or like Black Eyed Peas is an example I've been referred to recently of like, I love how they're just like, oh, we're doing this now. We're gonna get this person to come sing because they're fucking sick.
Yeah,
and we're doing that, and everyone's just like, yeah, cool.
Okay, I guess that's what it sounds like now.
Yeah.
This album sounds like this now.
Yeah, exactly. Because I love like some of the other stuff I write or work on is like, this doesn't make any sense with lounge, but I'm like, and then sometimes I would happy to do that just as a producer, but like my favorite artists as well are ones that kind of blow that thing up and just be like, do whatever as well. Like artists like Prince or something as well that kind of include lots of different references and just kind of go like, whatever, I'm just going to make music that I think is fucking cool. And then you can either vibe it or you don't, but that's cool. But I think lounge, we want to kind of represent something like that as well. Yeah. And it's going to take a little bit of time to kind of get to some of those places, but I'm really excited just to do it and just a little bit less lonely. It's like fun making music with people, and like I've got lots of these like cool writes that are sitting on my computer that I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to wrangle this into shape for a lounge song, but I want to do it at some point. You know?
Okay, I like that. Yeah, so did you do much writing and collaboration stuff in the UK when you were over there?
Yeah, I did. Like I was mainly doing sessions for other people.
Cool.
Like doing lots of writing for just sessions with people. Like a lot of people that come from Australia through APRA sessions, they'll come over and kind of just be seeking out different producers.
Sure, yeah.
So sometimes I'll be doing it just as a producer. Sometimes it'll be more like a writer. So yeah, I did a fair bit of it, and then I did a lot of writing for film and TV stuff over there as well, which is pretty fun. But
and that's definitely a unique world. That's a whole different.
Sure is. There's lots. Yeah, I mean, I learned a lot of stuff that I just had no idea about. But it's also just a really good thing as like a songwriter. It's a really good activity of just writing songs all the time and like just learning kind of the rules that we are talking about before of like learning kind of what are the basic rules to create a song of like just dynamics and how things should go in a song. Like, so it's been really good practice, but like they're a bit lyrically uninspiring, some of this music, but it's like,
but also it's like
still a good vibe.
Working with the word Bailey. It's a podcast, Bailey. Why are you stalling? Working with limitations. Lucky Bailey understands. He'll cut that out. Working with limitations. That's a whole like genre of unlocking in your brain. So that can be really helpful to be like, I guess we've only got this. We're working with this, and it can be a super cool growth period for you to work with limitations. Like I think about with the drums sometimes. Sometimes if I just want to set up the drum kit quickly, the 14 sits in my bedroom and I just run a different setup because it was easier at the time, but also it's like, well, what can I make with this setup? You know? Limitations is fun.
And it throws you in a different kind of creative zone that you might not have got to otherwise. Like I think that like routine is really good for creativity as well, I think, because you kind of can skip all the bullshit and go straight to the stuff that you know, and then you come up with cool ideas. But I think you need a combination of that, and then also throwing yourself somewhere that's like, okay, you can only have this. You've only got a shitty guitar with 3 strings on it, and they're all in different weird tunings. It's like, okay, cool. How can I write a song with that? Like, what sound can I get out of this that's fun? And yeah, I think with writing, like, I mean, I think that's the general premise of pop music as well. Like, as much shit as it cops, it's an incredible genre that pretty much obsessively uses the same chord structure in slightly varied ways, but just continues to like come up with these fucking masterpieces that you're like, why is this so good? Like, and I think it's amazing. It's a testament to brilliant songwriting and like the nuance of creativity that comes with that. Like, obviously it's a little bit more like worldly these days. I feel like pop music is pretty, kind of a broad word for lots of different stuff. But,
totally.
But in general, I think like writing songs with, less chords or, less rhythm or less whatever it is, it's like a really good creative exercise, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's awesome. I'm super excited to see what your iteration, this latest iteration of Lounge is.
Yeah, cheers,
and to sit up the back, it's gonna be fun. I've seen it from all the ways. When I first started, and you had an initial panic about any skeletons in the closet, and I said, I've seen you from you've seen you from playing in Mooloolaba Wharf.
Yeah, when was this?
I don't know.
Pretty sure you made this up, but
I don't know. It was a while ago. It was like 2020.
I don't even feel like they do gigs at the Mooloolaba Wharf.
It was like an isolated thing. Okay, guys, this is fucking real. Don't gaslight me. This is 100% real.
How's me gaslighting you on your own podcast?
It definitely happened.
I've never even met Sky.
All right, Bradley, that's enough, mate. No, but like it was in the corner, like out the front, like the Latin place and the diving place and the 9th Street thing. And you had long hair and you played stuff and it was a PA. I was there. It was real. It happened. But from there to now, the iteration of Lounge and just the vulnerability and like angst, but also like maturity of the music and just the whole vibe that it is. There's so many different things, and I love that there's so many different things a part of it because it keeps it interesting and it's exciting to play. And
appreciate it.
Like it's nice to do my homework and not have to be like, yeah, I've heard one of the songs, I'll figure the rest out. Because I've done situations where that's the go.
To be fair, they are all the same chords. We had
but they're not the same for me. There might be
like, these just the same chords every song. And I'm like, yeah, pretty much.
Well, it might be easy for you, but the feels and the different things you've got in there, the different elements is
splice loops.
Yeah, is splice loops. And you do a little bit in there as well. Though you have a couple of parts.
Then the drums.
Yeah, no, are you singing? You do a bit of that.
I do sing.
Yeah, he does sing. He does sing. He does singing and he's one chord. And he played a bit of drums allegedly. I can't confirm that.
There's no video footage of it, but he reckons he played the drums.
Okay, well if I'll cop that you played the drums in some of the songs, you'll cop that I definitely saw you all by Walk in 2020.
I'll tell everyone that I definitely met you there, and I definitely played the drums on.
Yeah, exactly. Sweet. So.
Definitely delete that on the blog.
Gaslight me. Jesus Christ, what a harsh way to end. Well, no, seriously, I'm super excited to be part of this and see what Lounge looks like for the future. And yeah, there's I've had a bit of a struggle myself with going, wow, there's a lot of things that I like doing that I'm not the best at. And I know that you would agree that there's some things in your learning phase that you're like, I really want to do X, Y, Z, but I'm not the best at it. Should I not? And you should, because what you're doing is awesome, and it's
yeah, thank you,
and it's cool because you see how people change and how people have different styles and things, and yeah, it's all growing, and it's all learning, and as long as you're keen, not just happy to and content with, but like keen to do both of those things.
I feel like that's the main thing, Hayes, is just wanting to do it, and I feel like you have that same energy of like you clearly just want to do stuff, and you have the ambition to wake up and make stuff happen. Because I think that nothing really happens unless you do it, and I think that's like. And I feel like in general, there's so many extremely talented people around, and half of them just don't want to do stuff a lot of the time. Like for a lack of a better word, I call it laziness. But people that just have so much talent and so much potential, and with so many brilliant ideas and stuff, but it's just hard to get them to like commit to wanting to do stuff. So yeah. I think with the stuff that you're doing, it's great. It's like awesome that you sit here and want to do a podcast, but then you're also playing in a million bands. Like you have a million reasons to not do a podcast because you're too busy or there's enough other stuff happening on. But I think that's just a great energy, and like the music community needs lots of people like that. So I think it's great. And thanks for inviting me on to have a chat. Oh. I'm pretty sure I invited myself on actually. But
you're like, oh, well, while I'm here, yeah, no, that's fine. Well, you gaslit me, so we'll call it even. No, we'll tell the lovely people where they can find Lounge, and they can find photos from circa 2020 of you with long hair.
That, please don't find that. It'd be better if you just never found that. But I'm pretty sure there's some shitty demos on SoundCloud. But just everywhere, really. Spotify, we've got a bunch of stuff on Spotify, Instagram, everything's on Lounge MP3, I think, at the moment. But yeah, there'll be lots more videos and music and all of that sort of stuff coming out real soon. So keep an eye on the channels and yeah.
Get the pipes moving. Woo! Fantastic. Well, thank you for sitting with me, and thank you for another episode of the Ask Muso podcast. You know the places to find these: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the places you can find Lounge. And as always, guys, until next time, I'll see you later.